Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Light 'em Up Lounge. Welcome back. It's wonderful to actually be back. I'm very, very sorry that I missed all of you last week and I had to leave you in the trusted and treasured hands of Christian because I was in the bush. Jeremiah and I went to Cameroon to go into the jungle, visit the tobacco fields, and get a deeper understanding of the Maripol operations and the genuine Maripol Cameroon tobacco, which was remarkable and a story in and by itself, and one that I'll very happily share with you, with including some pictures very, very soon. Today, though, we have a very special guest, and I was tremendously looking forward to today's show with an industry icon, an industry legend, a gentleman who's been in the business for a long, long time, even though he still looks so young and fresh. And
Thank
there's
you for
plenty of
that.
exciting things to talk about, and his relatively new role, even though it feels kind of like back to your roots also. Ralph Montero is here with me today, joining us from Miami. Ralph Montero from Raíces Cubanas. Welcome to Light 'em Up, and thank you very, very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate the invite. I'm very proud and it's a pleasure to be here with you and everyone else.
Absolutely. Well, what was a funny coincidence? I think it was yesterday or this morning, I read on Half Wheel that Raíces Cubanas is being introduced to the German market now.
That
And
is correct.
as you know, we have a truly global audience. We have people who watch us from Southeast Asia, Riot, our dear family member from the Middle East, proudly representing that part of the world. So we have plenty of
Thank you.
people joining us from there as well. Europe, Africa, and of course the US. So that was just a funny coincidence. But what's exciting is that Raíces Cubanas, I believe, for most cigar enthusiasts, was mostly a behind the scenes player, even though a lot of enthusiasts will most likely have enjoyed a cigar coming out of the factory, whether that was from Alec Bradley, whether that was from Dion's portfolio with Illusione or Viaje. But here we are in 2025. You in a vital role in bringing the Raíces Cubanas brand as the own cigar portfolio of the factory to a global audience. Um, First of all, how does it feel to be reunited with your old family team at Raíces Cubanas and the people that you've established these relationships with? But also, how does it feel different compared to when you were working with the Endemaño family as part of Alec Bradley?
Well, as you said, the Raíces Cubanas factory opened in 2003. You know, they've grown tobacco and throw has since then. Um, I've had a relationship with the Endemaño family since the late 90s. So, you know, we've interacted, we've collaborated in some other things. When I joined with Alan and Alec Bradley, one of the first trips to Honduras, we went to visit Ramai, we went to visit the factory. And in that role, it was more of a you know, customer role in a way, you know, but we began in earnest in about 2006 when we first blended our Tempest line. That was our first premium cigar from the factory. And, you know, we kept growing and growing, and we've done many things with them, not only with Alec Bradley, we did some private labels for others and things like that through Alec Bradley. We continued to do new things until really recently, but they're still involved in the Alec Bradley brand and continue to do so through the STG acquisition. So that doesn't stop, you know. The biggest change was after the transition with Alec Bradley and STG, Hugo, which is Hugo Endemaño, the son of Romain and Lipa, has always kind of wanted to create his own thing, get the namesake of the factory on a brand. And in my transition, he approached me after the AB sale and kind of said, maybe now's the time to do this. And you kind of shift the role to really having a partner rather than, even though we felt as partners and our family goes back so long, it creates a much stronger bond. We are a factory, not just a customer. And it does change the dynamic a little bit. It feels actually that we have a little bit more control over things. And I think it's actually a very positive step with this new brand that the factory can really get behind. And not that they don't do that for everyone, but it brings it up a level. It really brings it up a level, and we're really excited to present these new blends, these new lines to the world, and it has been exciting, aggravating, stressful, all those things as any new venture is, but it's we're happy, we're very happy that and we're moving forward.
Very good. Great to hear. Ralph, let's rewind a little bit and go back in time. Both you and the Endemaño family, you share Cuban roots. Uh,
Yes.
so I would assume there's sort of a natural bond, shared values and a shared history that creates a unity from the get-go. How you obviously also have tobacco in your blood from the earliest days on. Was it natural for you, and was it always clear that tobacco and cigars is going to be your life, or was there ever a moment where you felt, let me dabble with something else here for a little while?
Well, I'll tell you something, that story. I mean, my roots directly, my father and my uncles were tobacco brokers in Cuba before the revolution. And I began in the business through my uncle, Pedro Martin, which some people may know. It's been a while that he's passed, but he opened Tropical Tobacco in 1978, which is now Eduardo Fernandez Aganorsa. And I graduated out of high school on a Friday, and I started working in the warehouse on a Monday. And this is just never really thought about that history or that connection. But I'll tell you a story, and I have a photograph behind me. Let me just, and it's when the tobacco beetle bites you. Back in when I was with Tropical, one of the gentlemen that was working with me was an old Cuban tobacco guy, Agustin Gonzalez. And we were together maybe a couple of years, still, not really, still working on the warehouse in the office and things like that. And he says, Ralph, let me tell you a story. Once the tobacco beetle bites you, this industry has you forever. This gets in your blood. And I say, hey, Agustin, no, I mean, I don't know. Fast forward 10 years, we were still working together. And I looked at him and said, Agustin, do you remember what you told me? You're right. And that was 43 years ago.
Wow.
So yes, it does become part of who we are. Cigars, tobacco. It's very difficult not to love it. And it really becomes part of us. It really does. And I assume anyone who's in the cigar business can relate. Even cigar smokers become passionate about the product. And it's not just the cigar makers, but across everything that really touches cigars and tobacco and these things, really become fans and really love this product because of what it brings, right? It's not a cigarette, it's not these other things. It brings people together, for number one. And I think that's the main thing. It's a small industry, so even competitors and people that normally would be in other industries, not even talking to each other, you have this bond of almost competitive brotherhood that you don't see anywhere else. So it's a very special industry. And I think that's what gets into our blood. And you may start one day and and come to realize, as I have 43 years later, you're still loving it. And that's the difference, right? You don't really get tired of it. You still love it as much or more than 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago. And that's the beauty of this business.
Which side of the overall equation did you initially fall in love with the most? Because I wholeheartedly agree with you. The unity aspect, what brings everybody together, humble cigars, sitting down, sharing time with each other. For me, that time aspect is also very important nowadays more than ever because we
Yeah.
live in such a fast-paced world, and we spoke a little bit about that off air before we went live. But initially, what was the element that you sort of clinged onto and that you were interested in? Was it the agricultural part of the tobacco, the raw material side? Was it building a product, building a brand also? Where do you see yourself falling into the
I
most?
think the passion came from, and really what I truly enjoy is the part down at the factories. That whole incorporation of the fields, the curing, the blending, the processing of getting this plant and the process to get this plant to a cigar that is well balanced, that is uh, something that you are proud of, and the blending process, making sure that everything is what you're expecting, what you want to present to the customer, what you want to present to the world. I think that part is really where the passion is. Where not where the passion is, because the passion is also in the social aspect of it and all that stuff, but that's where it gets into your blood.
Mhm.
I think that's where the really interesting things go on, and you see some of these guys that are, you know, 50 years doing this, and the way they process tobacco and the way they know and all these things through experiences, and you learn so much from the old timers, because that's what you learn. So a lot of the times, just be quiet and listen, and you'll be better for it.
Amen. Do you remember the first time that you met Alan Rubin and how the
Yes, as a
relationship
matter of fact, it was a probably a 40-second coincidence. It was 1998, I believe. I was visiting someone in Miami. Uh, I was doing some business with him, and I guess he was doing the same. And I either was on the way out and he was on the way in, or vice versa. And we were introduced. We exchanged business cards, and that was it. It was literally a 40-second interaction. But we stayed in communication after that, and slowly but surely we became closer. We communicated more and more until that time came where he said, let's get together and do this. And that was in 2000 officially.
What was it that you saw in him or in his vision that ultimately convinced you to join forces and dedicate yourself to Alec Bradley?
Well, number one, we clicked. You meet certain people that you just click, personalities, uh, everything, that just everything just was, it was like meeting an old friend for the first time, even. And he had already the passion of the cigar. He was a cigar smoker for many years. He got into the business in 1996, and so on and so forth. So we both shared this passion of the cigar itself, but we also, looked at Alec Bradley as something that to build and to grow. And that's basically it evolved from there. But ultimately, it was really how we just each other. We meshed perfectly, from personality. Wonderful man. It was from the beginning. It really was from the beginning. And without that, I can't say that things progress easily in any relationship.
I can very much relate to that. I still fondly remember when I met Alan for the first time, and then a conversation that he and I shared here at the Light 'em Up Lounge via Zoom, and it was one of the most heartwarming conversations, and it just felt so candid and real, and that's how I always appreciated Alan as being such a uh, warm person, very clear in his vision and his words, but very sincere in his approach towards other people.
Well, when you said it, one of the words that you said was real, right? And and you know those people that are real, that have their feet planted on the ground. And those are the ones that at least for me, those are the ones that I interact with easier and actually enjoy being around.
Yeah. Now, obviously, Alan took a bit of a step back uh, from
Correct.
from his industry role, and you're very much involved in it still, which is wonderful. Just to sort of set things straight on the record briefly, Raíces Cubanas came into the picture in 2003, right? And you met. Well, you already had a long-standing relationship with the Endemaño family, and
Yes.
you've already been with Alec Bradley at that time also. How did all of these different
Correct.
streams sort of come
Well,
together?
the relationship with Romai and these is somewhat started as a fluke in the late 90s. It wasn't really anything to do with the cigar business, as a matter of fact, but we interacted in certain ways. They wanted to open up the factory. They also had a distribution here in Miami for a while. So I kind of helped them from an administrative sense, kind of set those things up and move forward with certain of the of just the structural things that they needed. And you know, as their factory grew, and they started growing more and more tobacco in Trojes. They, you know, it was an opportunity being with Alan at that time to let's go down there and see what we can do with Romay and with Raíces. And that's where the two things kind of were able to meet in the middle and benefit my relationship with the Endemaño family and my relationship with Alan and kind of join those two parts.
How did you feel back then, and maybe it's still true to this day, that Raíces Cubanas, or what the Endemaño family ha had in mind and what they were able to put into tangible action, how was all of that different from all the other cigar factories that you had seen, visited, or had worked with before?
Well, you know, it's there's a lot of cigar factories, a lot of families that have very similar passions. I mean, if you're in this business, you're a particular type, you know. Is there a different uh, mentality or way of doing things? Maybe slightly, but ultimately, you know, you have a small family, a small business that you really dedicate the family dedicated 100% to this being, this really creation. And that's how you find it in many of our different cigar makers. That's just part of what this business is. But because of that early relationship that I had with them, obviously the the ease of doing business with them, the almost family atmosphere that I felt with them, even though I felt that with some of the other people that I've worked with, it was that was part of how we kind of were drawn to that. And Alan also, you know, so it was both of us being drawn to, but we also did, you know, cigars in other areas and other places during our 23 years together. They just happened to be, we did basically 50% with Raíces, and then the rest was maybe Placencia, and we did something in Dominican, we did something with Fuego. So it basically evolved to that.
I feel that with time and when you smoke a lot of different cigars from different factories, you start to see certain nuances, or you start to see a certain handwriting of the people who are blending, the people who are rolling the cigars, and it's almost like you start to see a certain house style from certain manufacturers. And in fact, I would argue that for brand owners who are interested in creating their own cigars, that's probably one of the first questions you really ask yourself as to which kind of handwriting and house style do you want to associate yourself with, or which one do you see align with your own vision and your values. And I'm sure you've experienced that over and over with Raíces Cubanas as well.
Well, I think every factory, what you're saying, has a style, has a flavor profile or a general flavor profile, but also a style in general. Um, Raíces does have a reputation or style throughout the years. Even though the blends are varied and the experience is varied, there's a certain commonality where you can kind of tell what is what. But again, I think it happens to every manufacturer. I think there's a handful of people creating those blends that have a certain preference. And you still want to be satisfied yourself with what you're going to present. And there may be certain avenues that you won't take in terms of a profile. So you kind of maintain into this range. Now we're trying to experiment with different tobaccos and different things to see what comes out, what differences come out, what something a little special that may not be associated with races in some ways, just to kind of expand from where we are now and in the future, kind of grow that experience to incorporate a little bit different styles. And that'll be a work in progress over the years.
Would you say that the approach and the way of thinking on the manufacturing side changes in any way, shape, or form when you think about and you ultimately decide to go forth with your own brand versus a private label and manufacturing cigars for another company?
I don't think ultimately you want to present, whether it's a private label, whether it's your own brand, you want to do what's right for that blend or that customer. So not that we're going to cut corners or do something different. If someone comes to us and say, I want this cigar, we're going to do the best that we can to make sure that what he is getting is exactly what he wants. And remember now he has a thought in his mind about his profile and things. Our job is to say, can we get there for you? And that satisfaction of saying, this is exactly what I want for my brand, uh, that's that's ultimately what we're after.
Yeah.
And to satisfy that customers in quotation, rather than maybe do your own brand and kind of do your own thing of where your stamp of the brand is on that cigar. I still think we're doing the same thing. We want to make sure that what comes out of that factory is something that whoever is going to either contract the factory for, or whether it's our own cigar, is what we want to present to the end consumer, to the world, and it satisfies that route, so to speak.
I couldn't agree more. I think where it probably deviates slightly is in terms of the raw material and supply, but also you probably have a straighter line to the goal, because there's no other party involved with somebody who has a certain taste profile in mind, and it's maybe
It does open
a,
up,
right?
yes, you open yourself up to more options if you want it. There's no, do you like this? Do you like this? If we like this and we're going off on a tangent, but we do enjoy this different, then there's no approval process, so to speak. So yeah, it frees you up to do a lot of different things. It doesn't limit you saying, I think this is too strong or too, we blend all the time. A lot of the times you blend to a certain uh, outcome where you want to kind of present this. And so, the factory's always playing around. And sometimes you are just blending and you say, what is this? And what can we do with it? It happens a lot. It happens in both ways. Sometimes you're very specific to where you want to be, and sometimes it surprises you.
So that's actually a very good point and an excellent segue to a question that's burning on my fingertips. When you started with a blank canvas and the white sheet of paper, knowing that you're about to launch Raíces Cubanas' own cigar brand, where do you start, or what's the vision that you throw on that blank canvas in terms of how you want to structure an initial portfolio and how you want to go out to the world and present yourself? Sort of here's your business card. Here's the cigars that you
Right.
want to
And
present to the market.
and if you look at what the lines that we presented, we kind of went initially to kind of incorporate three distinct uh, feels. We went to the mild but yet flavorful. We did a very complex middle to full, and then we did something that was very uh, had a lot of body in the flavor. Our GRD3 was more of a size kind of quirky thing, but we wanted to really have a really initial distinction of three particular experiences. And I think we did accomplish that because, the classicals are mild, but everything's, it's not bland, it's very flavorful. Our Liga de Reyes to me is the very middle of ground, but very complex, a lot of nuances in flavor. And our C5 Black is just bold flavor. I mean, really nice with that Corte Cinco wrapper, very nice, So I think that's where we were kind of saying, how can we kind of meet certain profiles initially, and then we expand from there.
And
It gave us a good base.
would you say these are cigars or blends that you basically had already blended, or you had in the
No,
drawer?
these are three unique blends. I mean, we must have gone through many blends. And as you know, there's a trial and error as part of the blending process, for a year. And we ended up settling on these exact three blends, but no, they were all new blends. Nothing that we've done before. Obviously, we know the tobacco, where it's going to guide you, you're used to what you use and things like that. But from a blend perspective, they're three unique blends.
Speaking of the tobaccos, Ralph, please guide us a little bit through the specific types of tobaccos that you're using in the core portfolio, and also in particular, which of these are grown by the Endemaño family, and where do you use other growers' tobaccos?
Well, we have what we grow. We do at least five variations of seeds that we've grown. Criollo 98, Corojo 99. We have some Connecticut broadleaf, and they have a hybrid seed that they created that we also grow not all the time, but that's what we concentrate on. We also have tobacco that we've purchased, Dominican, Nicaragua, Mexico, um, Ecuador. So we have, obviously, you have to go out and buy some tobaccos that can enhance what you do. We also grow with based on seed strain. So we have either Corojo 99 grown in Trojes or Corojo 99 grown in Jamastran. Raíces now has farms in Jamastran, farms in Trojes, which is very close to the border in Nicaragua. So, and those seed varietals have distinct characteristics that you can also blend with and play with.
We were talking about the house style. Do you think it's mostly down to the raw materials that are available to this particular factory? Is it the way that the factory sort of reworks the tobacco during the pre-industry, maybe doing a slightly different finish on a fermentation? Or is it also down to the rolling aspect, the way the supervisors work with the people on the Galera floor, a certain, bunching technique?
Well, the bunching and I mean, obviously the placement is very important for the burn and all that stuff. But from a tobacco sense, I think the style comes from mostly what they grow, right? So I think Trojes they started growing in 2001 or 2002, which is they know that tobacco, they know those fields for many years. It's a very unique microclimate in Trojes, very unique tobacco. I think it's an excellent tobacco. I think one of the best that we can play with, very noble, really works in a lot of different blends. Hamastron was, I think, 2017. They started in Hamastron. So that is a whole different experience with even the same seed strain in Hamastron and Trojes are two different things. And Hamastron is another one of my favorites. I've always loved Hamastron. As a matter of fact, my uncle Pedro that was one of his favorite regions. And some of these tobaccos really are, you can take a Viso from Trojes and roll it up and smoke it almost as a complete cigar because it really incorporates a lot of the balanced, it has sweetness, it has power, it has this, it has that. It's the tobacco itself can be rolled and smoked. And that's where the nobility comes from that particular tobacco. Hamastron had that kind of feel to it. Even though Hamastron over the last 20 years, I'm not sure if it's climate or whatever, hasn't had that something, in the it doesn't feel the same as 20 years ago, but it's still an excellent. I think that's one of the best cigar tobacco, Hamastron, Trojes, Nicaragua. Everything has its characteristic, right? So we
Everything
start
has.
talking about what's your favorite tobacco, it's almost impossible to say because everything is going to add something, and the more you have, the more variety you have, the more you can, the more ingredients a chef has. It's phenomenal.
Very true. And I believe you use a wrapper from Trojes on the
Most of the
glass.
wrappers we use is Trojes specifically. Yes, yes.
Was that also a conscious decision to sort of proudly feature your own tobacco um,
Yeah,
on the glass of the door?
it does. That was part of it. We have it's just the way everything has evolved over the last 20 years in Trojes. It just was the right tobacco or the better tobacco to be used for the wrappers. Not that we won't use in the future one of the crops from Hamastron, or obviously we can buy tobacco, we can buy other wrappers, which in the future I think we're going to expand into that. But that's the reason why we've kind of stayed with what almost, and know what that tobacco is going to do to that cigar, especially on the wrapper. That's more important.
Besides the cigar and the tobacco aspect, what was sort of the vision for the brand itself, the brand identity, the design, and the way you wanted to present it? It's interesting. I find that it's a colorful and sort of bold presentation. The Classico obviously has a bit more of an old school vibe and
Right.
old school feel to it. But especially the Corte Cinco, it's colorful, it's vibrant, it looks very modern.
Well, one of the things that we went back and forth on was that, and it was it was a collaborative thing with the family and the opinions and things like that. So it's never easy to choose a direction one way or another. And we decided from a overall sense that we used this particular artist that was varying a little bit the styles, and we liked the characteristics or the differences where each brand had its own feel. And that's where we kind of decided let's head this way.
I'm curious with your experience in the market, Ralph, which school of thinking do you believe in? Is it more build it and they will come, or listening very closely to what the market is asking for, what the consumer is demanding, and trying to react to that and give
I think
them?
you have to do, I think you part of it is doing what you feel is, but you have to listen. You have to listen, and as we get more involved in to see what changes or how this industry, which it is, the industry changes all the time. Um, you may see different things trying to adjust to that because you do want to listen. You have to listen. And over time, I think you'll see some variations in what we're presenting.
What would you say were some of the not key learnings, but some of the takeaways from Alec Bradley, some of the best practices that he wanted to carry over to Raíces Cubanas?
Well, there was a lot of there was a lot of learning in Alec Bradley, you know, from as we all learn from our successes and our failures, right? So there were one of the things that we mentioned before is, ultimately you have to respect the cigar, and the cigar is ultimately what you're presenting. Everything else is. Uh, is something that is added to that to give the final package. But I think Alan and I always, at least for me, I'm a very traditionalist in a way from a cigar standpoint. And the cigar was always king first, and then everything else can come behind it and enhance it. So I think not just with Alec Bradley and with Alan, but we always were focused on what we're going to present from a cigar standpoint. What is that experience? If you take all the bands away, all the packaging away, all the marketing away, and you give him a plain cigar, what is that experience? And is that something that he'll say, wow, this is a great experience? And ultimately, I think that's what my mentality is. And then the rest should hopefully be placed in the proper position. But I'd like to have people say, wow, this is a good cigar. This is a profile of. Ultimately, that's what I want to hear is I really enjoyed this.
Excellent point. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Would you say through the acquisition of Alec Bradley from STG, there were other elements where you felt you also took away a lot of learning from that? Even though I would imagine it's probably a challenging period also, right? When you've been with the company for such a long time, ownership changes, the whole structure changes, and
It's
you suddenly see the baby in somebody else's hands. I'm sure there's a lot of pride, but also pain at the same time in such a transition process.
it's very bittersweet. It's something that it's just a progression of business, right? I mean, there's two things to see. This was what a decision that was made, and um, there was an opportunity, and so on and so forth. But definitely, when you dedicate a large part of your life to building something up, and that is, not taken away, but I mean, taking over. Yeah, of course, it's bittersweet. I mean, we had a great family there, and not to say that the relationships stay; those never go away. But yeah, it's not the same. It's great, and then I miss going to the office there. So it is definitely bittersweet.
Ralph, like sort of taking that into consideration, but then also looking at the industry at large, what's your general sentiment about where we're currently at as an industry? as a global cigar community, um, you've seen the evolution, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of the cigar market and the way people appreciate and enjoy the whole culture and the lifestyle around it. How does the present time feel to you in terms of the cigar culture and how strong it is?
I think that we are in a transition, a little bit of a transition. I don't know if it has to do with the culture itself. I think the cigar culture, the cigar smokers remain very loyal, very passionate about that. I think that the culture isn't so much changing, but there's an economic point of view. There's other things that are occurring almost externally that do affect our day to day, do affect tobacco, the certain changes that are happening in the growing regions from a climate sense. Um, so the culture from a personal view, from a cigar smoker's view, I think is strong. I think that doesn't change. But the external factors may adjust habits and other things that normally may not have affected it. And I'm not just talking about economics, but like, the the changes sometimes that we find in just a crop, that we have problems of this and that, the ups and downs. We had a scarcity of tobacco that's stabilizing a little bit, so maybe now you see a little bit more stability in terms of the manufacturing, whether it's a little bit reduced in volume or not. We have yet to see that. From a business standpoint, we don't know where that's going. But back to what you said, I think from the basic culture of cigars, I think that's very strong. I think a cigar smoker is doesn't give up that easily on his time with that cigar.
And that's exactly how it should be. One thing that you touched upon, and I'm just curious to deep dive on that a little bit. Um, you were mentioning how climate changes can also affect the way that tobacco is being grown, how certain crops turn out to be. Um, are there any major adjustments that you see, particularly with Raíces Cubanas and the way that you grow tobacco, or do you see an immediate impact on certain nuances changing and how the tobacco turns out differently?
I don't I don't I don't foresee something that is too immediate. But I mean, when I was down in Honduras a few weeks ago, it was hot. It was hotter than I felt it in quite a while. So I think over time, I think we have to learn to make certain adjustments in the fields, in the growing. I don't know what that's going to look like, but uh, water, drought, things that may or may not occur. I don't know, but I do see that there may be instability down the road. I don't think that we have to worry about it tomorrow, but I think we have to have our eye on it and make sure that, when we see these changes, how can we adjust and create maybe technologies or seed strains or whatever to counter that a little bit and maintain our industry strong.
I mean, quite frankly, what fascinates me, Ralph, and I was just reminded of that sheer fact last week when I was in Cameroon, is the unbelievable amount of time it takes from a humble seed to a leaf through the pre-industry all the way to when you finally sit down, you light up a cigar and you enjoy that moment. And not only the time aspect, but also the ungodly amount of energy and love and passion that goes into every single nuance of the entire equation. And then sometimes it baffles me when you see people who just very casually smoke a cigar and maybe throw it into the ashtray halfway through. And then you think about what it takes to create the cigar, and it's going to cost you $10, $12, $15, whatever it might be. It's still such an incredibly affordable piece of luxury and priceless experience and history and legacy. And and I think most people just don't understand or even begin to appreciate what's really behind every single one of these masterpieces.
Well, being in it and seeing how um, you go to the fields, you go to the factories, you go to, and you see everyone work the way they do, but understanding that from the seed bed to the field, to the curing barn, to the fermentation, to the aging, selection, blending, rolling, aging, all that for a cigar. If you look at a chain, right, the chain has to work. One link breaks, and that tobacco isn't going to be what you want it to be. It is, as you say, to appreciate that for cigar makers to make sure that from seed to cigar, all these things have to happen correctly. Then you're right. We should, the cigar may, it is of value. And consume, I think a lot of consumers may understand this and do value that. Maybe some don't, but you can't really change the world. But I think the people, and maybe they just don't know, right? We live in a world where we're a throwaway economy. I mean, if this doesn't work, you buy a new one. That whole thing, the iPhones 5, 6, 10, 12, 18, that's also a mentality. You don't buy anything anymore, you lease it. You stream media, you don't buy a record. So I think that is also part of maybe that flaw in how we see products, whether it's luxury, whether it's a wine, whether it's whatever it is. Maybe that's part of what you see and what you were explaining. It could be just a cultural thing that we're changing. People are changing.
And I think we have to accept the sheer fact that certain things inevitably are changing and they always will. I just wonder how we as an industry can do a better job also at communicating some of these fundamental values and introducing more people to what truly makes cigars such an incredible, not even product, that would be the wrong word, but leisure, pleasure, pastime,
Experience, yes.
what, calling,
Yeah.
whatever you want to name it, right? And I think of it also in very tangible, actual action points or ideas like I mean a show like ours that takes a very dedicated special kind of cigar lover to on a random Wednesday or every Wednesday
Yes.
join two guys talking about tobacco and cigars for an hour or an hour and a half. That's already a very small percentage of the people who enjoy premium cigars, but when you think about the world of wine, which has, I believe, done a great job over the last decades in promoting the lifestyle and the culture around the enjoyment of wine, where it slowly trickled into pop culture, and you see sommeliers that suddenly become rock stars, plenty of books, Netflix series, documentaries being shot about wines and sommeliers. Um, Cigars aren't quite there yet. And
No, they're not. But if you look at, let's talk numbers, right? I mean, you have how many wine connoisseurs or wine drinkers in the world or in the US or wherever. And cigar smokers in the big picture, are a small group, dedicated but small group. And also, don't forget about there's the different regulatory attitude against tobacco versus liquor or wine or beer. So there's more outlets to really send your message out. But one of the things that I do is, or that I know people do, is when they get together with friends and there's a non-smoker, a non-smoker, and it's happened to me, and he sees that. I mean, if it's happened, Ralph, can I try that? Can I try a cigar? And you give him a mild cigar, and he goes, yeah, let's try this. And, that is almost the simplest way I can tell you for anyone that doesn't smoke cigars or doesn't like cigars or whatever to experience what that is. But that's grassroots kind of thing. Yes, it's not going to be overnight, but I don't think there's and I've had ugh, that cigars are terrible things. So it's a great point that you make, right? How do we present what we feel to the world? And it's not an easy answer. It really isn't. I wish it would be simpler to do that. And lifestyle ads and all these other things go only a certain way. Plus, we're limited to those that are looking at our media are already cigar smokers.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see a wine ad, but not be a wine drinker because it's all over the place. And maybe you will be interested. But again, there's limitations from a regulatory sense, but not to say that we can't send that message individually out there. And it's not going to be an overnight process, but I think it can happen. It can happen, and I think slowly it has. I mean, we have back when I had got into this business in the 80s. The U.S. was importing less than 100 million cigars. Then when they came to the 90s boom, it was a lot of fad, but a lot of people stayed with us, and it became a little bit more and a little bit more. So I don't believe that we're anywhere close to going backwards. But yes, it's not as easy as to get this so worldwide so easily. There's certain limitations.
Is that also something that you probably took into consideration for the brand, and how you actually want to carry the message of the brand to the people, both
Well,
existing cigar
the brand
industry?
is based on tradition, right? It's Raíces Cubanas, this thing. Even though in internationally we're only known as Raíces, we're just still the roots of who we are, and that's part of it. We feel that when we get down to the roots of anything, I think you're really at the source, and you're really from a feeling standpoint, from a passion standpoint, the roots is everything, right? So we are here. We are uh, the basis of this industry, and I think that's a great message from what we want to say is, we are the roots. We are the true or the real. And we go back to this a lot, right? We want to be real. And the cigars and the experiences and the passion we would try to emulate. And hopefully that kind of starts building and building.
And we wish you nothing but the very best, and lots of
Thank you.
success for that. What's your vision and your aspirations for the not so distant future when you look at the remainder of 2025 and maybe the next year ahead? Where do you see the brand, and where do you want to take it?
Well, I think that we have from a expansion sense, I do, we are trying to get a little bit more international exposure. Um, Growing our brand in the US is very important to us. we started basically our coming out party was the PCA. So we're kind of taking we're just at the beginning of this. So as we move forward and create a little bit more exposure to the brand, a lot more, we would expect a lot more consumers to experience our brand and then expand our portfolio, not just portfolio from a brand standpoint or line standpoint, but almost also expand our experiences that we can offer. And we're working on another launch later this year or early next year. That's very exciting that we're working on now. And slowly, build the reputation of this passion and this family and this roots, and just be able to the message would be, trust us, right? We come from, we're new, but we're not new. We're old. Trust us, trust our cigars, and that will evolve into hopefully a very nice future.
Bravo. Ralph, it's been such a privilege and such a pleasure to welcome you at the Light 'em Up Lounge and to learn and to listen to you, learn from your experience. But I think that there's a very interesting story that's being told through the Raíces Cubanas cigar brand, and a beautiful message that I have no doubt you will do a tremendous job in sharing with the world. And I look forward to seeing the cigars in many shops and lounges, both in the US and internationally. And I'm excited to see how things go in Germany, and I'll go and pick up a couple of cigars there. But as I said, thank you very much for joining us today and for everything that you shared with us.
Reinhard, it was a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. It was a very great time for me, and well, I'll see you in Dortmund.
Absolutely. Latest in Dortmund. There's a good
Yes,
chance
maybe
I
earlier.
might see you a little earlier
Okay,
in summer, because I most likely will be coming to the US in July. So I'll definitely let you know.
excellent. Thank you very much. Thank everyone for joining in. I appreciate everything.
Well, you ain't getting off that easy. Curiosity, first of all, it's really good to see you. It's been a few years. But you mentioned this Hammerstrong tobacco, which I have never seen or heard of. Okay. But you talk very passionate about it. Are you using any of that for wrapper?
Not yet. We are, the crop started in 2017. As I said before, our Trojas, which is traditionally where we've grown our Criollo 98 and Corojo 99. So we use those. We have very particular farms there that are excellent for wrapper, that give you a lot of yield of wrapper. Not to say, and as our crops, it's only been 8 years in Hamastron, and we do get some wrapper, but the volume of wrapper, you also need enough wrapper that you would like to, make sure that you have for a certain production. So it's not like we don't get wrapper, it's do we get it in enough yield and so on and quality that we want to use in line. But I don't doubt that we will be able to use some Hamastron wrapper maybe in some future time. I don't see why not, depending on the crops over the next few years.
Are there any stores in California that are carrying your product yet?
Not yet. California is a tough one. We're actually working on the licenses for that.
Yeah, I'd be curious because I'd really like to try your stuff because I'm still, and I was always curious about this. I'm still smoking the original Tempest and some of your original stuff because when I smoked the second version of it, it wasn't quite there for me as the first was. Now it's lost some strength, but the flavor was absolutely amazing on the
You're
original
talking about the
Tempest.
original Tempest, because then later not the Tempest Nicaragua.
No, the original Tempest.
Tempest.
Yes.
One of the things that we battle all the time, and you may be an excellent witness to this, is that consistent, in terms of crop after crop after crop, Um, I don't know. It's sad that you don't find the same nuances there, but that's one of the things that is most important is to maintain that profile from that first year to the 10th year.
Well, the
And it's
profile's there. It's just it's how do I explain it? It's kind of like when they went from Oliva, when they went from Master Blend 1 to Master Blend 2. The profile was there, but it wasn't quite as good, you know.
the nuances of flavor.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that maybe a slight tone of pepper that where you were missing, something like that, maybe.
It could be. It could be.
Because that first Tempest in 2007 uh, had first the strength, but it also had this nice, mild, almost subtle peppery
The white
flavor.
pepper. Yeah.
And maybe that's what may be missing in what you're trained. That's the only thing that I can see over time that may diminish.
Yeah, because the first Alec Bradley I ever smoked was the Max.
Ah,
Okay, way back when. And I've had a lot of friends, that worked for Alec, for Ruben, for Alan, over the years. And I've always appreciated Alec Bradley's product, so, but Clay Roberts, like for instance, is the one who
yeah.
introduced me to Alan back in the day. Uh, and I always appreciated his honesty and your honesty when it came down to what you guys were working on. So that Benji used to always say, always stay teachable. So I always tried to learn something new.
That is true. My uncle said once to me, if you come across someone that says he knows everything about the tobacco and cigar business, stay away.
Yeah, yeah.
I never forgot that.
So do you think that with the weather changing and getting hotter, especially in Honduras, that maybe by planting a little earlier in the year might be able to do the change?
But you also have the rainy season. So you're
Yeah,
balancing all these things. You can't, you don't want to grow in July and June and have your downpour and there goes anything of quality.
yeah, you get the heavy leaf. Yeah.
So it really is tough, right? It will be tough, and maybe nothing happens. I just see certain things just by feeling, by going to how much drying. My God, how hot is this? So um, you can't just change your growing season unless the rainy season all of a sudden changes too. So
You mean
that's
like California?
well, see the wine can go north, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just it's the awareness that you must have to be able to gauge this and hopefully have the tools to make those adjustments as the years progress. If in fact there is a little bit of a change over the years, which I believe that there may be.
Well, I appreciate you. I thank you for coming on tonight. It was really,
It was
really
my pleasure.
appreciated.
It was my pleasure.
Ralph, before we let you go, Macy, who is here with us, but I believe busy shoveling some lunch in his face. Oh, there he is. Macy, stage is yours. Shout it
Do
out
I
to the
dare show
world.
you my adult Lunchable? I don't know if you know what a Lunchable is in Austria. Does that makes
Absolutely.
sense? But I don't get a Capri Sun juice box like my son at the end of, you know.
I'll
I
see if
wish
I can
everyone
find
got a
one here for
trophy because
you.
that'd be the only way I'd get one, back. But anyway, that's a little different. Do we have time, Mr. Montero? The
Call
amount
me
of
Ralph,
respect
please.
I have, the deep prefer. I hope you got a little time because this is quite an honor. And I've purchased a lot of products made at the Raíces Cubanas factory. I It's a great factory, one of probably the most underappreciated factories in the industry. I could have a hard time thinking of one that's probably more underappreciated then that factory, maybe that's about to change with a certain brand coming to
Hopefully,
market.
yes.
You never know. So and I wish you a great, tremendous, and I'm trying to find the camera and I'm cross-eyed to begin with, so I'm sorry. I'm doing the best. So I don't know where I'm looking, but uh, uh, I look forward to buying some of the products. I completely I'm usually a bear. I'm usually, not bullish on new brands, saying there are too many brands. What are these people doing? You are the opposite. You farm, you have factory. The world needs your cigar brand. All these other people know you, yes. So no, I'm not always negative. Far from it. And actually, the price, the value proposition for the products coming out of your factory, that factory, whoever owns it, the SAR's factory, Raices Cubanas. I mean, just tremendous value. So I just first want to say uh, thank you for that. And for if there's anyone out there watching this, whatever, that hasn't, look it up, try some cigars, try these new ones. I imagine they'll be well worth the money. I hope you hit it out of the park, truly.
Thank you.
I've got a couple questions, if I may. One, um, and some of these folks on here I've actually met at the Nicaraguan festival, Puro Sabor. It is a dream of mine. I know there was it Festival del Jaguar, Humo Jaguar, I think it was
Mhm.
called, for 1 or 2 years maybe.
Yeah,
So
that didn't continue.
yeah, I would love. So I guess for what it's worth, I would be a 100% participant. Well, maybe that's a reason not to do it for you, but no. So if you talk to your other colleagues slash competitors up there in Honduras, let them know that there's a real market for this festival if we can get it going. I think it would be tremendous. I know it's a huge pain, easy for me to say, but I do humbly think I know it's worth your consideration, and to whoever the right people are, I just try to let that percolate and crecerse
Absolutely. I
in
mean,
your
they
mind.
have a group of manufacturers down there that an association that may consider it. One of the things that I would love to wait till is for that damn road from Tegucigalpa to Danlí to finish. That's a nightmare. Just to
Well, we
get
may
to
we that yeah that
oh my God, it's terrible. Just to get from the Comayagua to Danlí can be up to 4.5, 5 hours on that road. So,
I'm
but
not
yeah,
taking
I
that.
mean,
The
when they did
stories
it
are
those 2 times, it was very successful. I think it was 2 or 3 times that they did it.
but you get us on buses, we can smoke cigars 5 hours. It's an adventure. That's part of, pass some rum, maybe, all of these these are there are workarounds to all of these are just
Absolutely. That's part of the
opportunidades. Um,
experience, right?
absolutely. It really is. I live in Mississippi, so we have some similar areas where, it's part of the flavor. Like you go to the Delta where the blues comes from, and you got to get lost and some. Anyway, just part of the fun. My last question, and I'll stop, is and I was listening on YouTube driving around, and if you covered this, I apologize, but the growing regions of Nicaragua, less so Dominican, Cuba more, but Honduras, you hear Amastron, Trojes. I don't really know much as far as like general tasting notes or differences. Now, I understand that's going to depend on the varietal tobacco, but could you speak a little bit to terroir or the growing regions in Honduras, which type of crops generally do better in which regions, and maybe kind of some tasting notes or characteristics, because I think that's a lot less known, and I think Honduran tobacco is maybe the best in the world. There are cigars that Honduran pures that um, are some of my favorites. So
A lot of the tobacco that's grown in, obviously mostly it's going to be a type of Habano seed. Trojes is a region that I know well. It's actually the almost like the Jalapa Valley coming into Honduras side. However, it's got some mountainous regions close by, so it's a little bit different in microclimate. That's the one I was we were talking about earlier, that to me it's very similar to Hamastron, where you have the characteristics, especially on the Habano tobacco, where it gives you richness, sweetness. It gives you so many characteristics, and I was saying that it's a very noble tobacco where you can really blend, and it blends well with a lot of different other tobaccos. You know, you have Hamastron, which I think is similar, even though the flavor profile, the notes are a little bit more earthy, maybe a little bit more, maybe a slight drier tone from a flavor perspective. There's also, I think National grows in Olancho. That I don't know too much about that area, but since we grow in Hamastron, we grow in Trojes, our two main regions. That's what at least from my point of view, I can talk a little bit more. And there are slight differences in those profiles, as I mentioned. But there's also Talanga, which is another growing region, even though they do a lot of shade grown Connecticut there. But even with the soil content, you know, you have an Habano or a Connecticut grown in Hamastron, which, you know, it gives you this middle of the road from that Connecticut bright, almost I don't know how to say it, but the bright flavor to more of a substance flavor, even with the Connecticut. You know, it brings it more Central American, if you will. So there's, depending on what you grow, like broadleaf, for example, it grows very well, you know, and that's a tough crop. I mean, so many things can happen to a broadleaf, but the broadleaf there is a little bit more, a little cleaner, beautiful wrapper. We've grown broadleaf 8 years ago. We grew that, which we have broadleaf that's aging now for filler. And it's just that almost, I don't want to say a sour note, but it kind of goes there a little bit, that heavy flavor that broadleaf add, but it's unique. It's hard to pinpoint what the broadleaf flavor is unless you know it, you know. But yeah, there's the regions are a little different, and again, I'm talking about two regions that I know well, but the Olancho, Talanga, it's very distinct, as you see Jalapa
Talanga.
distinct from Esteli, distinct from Condega.
I love Talanga. I would love to do some work with that. It's just as a wrapper.
It's a wrapper. It's a Connecticut shade wrapper. It's different, completely different when you use it as a wrapper on a Connecticut. It's actually it gives you, I think, a little bit more balanced flavor on the cigar.
You know, just on that note, with local shop, I was traveling for business, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, but the employee there swore, he says, he goes, I love the Alec Bradley double broadleaf, and I believe that's some of what you're talking. Is that right? So you've got one of them on this
That was one of
guy.
the
You
creations.
got a guy
That was
going.
an excellent blend. It's phenomenal. That one has a very deep balanced flavor, but oh my God, it's you did you have one?
I've had it before, but I know that tobacco's pretty good. And
Yeah,
on your point, I'm normally not a shade smoker because I feel there's not enough, you know, not enough flavor. But Honduran shade or Honduran Sumatra, especially when it's hot outside in the afternoon, that's a pretty good. Uh, it hits that Goldilocks spot. It has that Central American. You said it best. It's still got, and not just
right.
nicotine strength, but still got some of that earthiness,
That's the word. Yeah.
that to me, a lot of Connecticut shade tastes like paper. Maybe I've blown my palate out, but anyway, thank you so much, and thank you for that answer.
Thank
Macy,
you.
you've got to try something with the Talanga wrapper. It really is a very good wrapper, especially for people who are not really into the Connecticut. There's a lot more personality to it. You know, I'll send you a private message about a couple of cigars that are made with Talanga as wrapper.
Very good.
Macy, many thanks for the questions and for chiming in. Um, Ralph, I think one of the major takeaways from that is Honduras can certainly take a more prominent spot in the
Agreed.
spotlight of
Agreed.
premium cigar industry. And I wholeheartedly believe and I wish that your work and what you do with the Endemaño family and the Raíces Cubanas can play a vital role in that, together with other stars and proud ambassadors of Honduran tobacco and cigars. But I also agree with Macy that Raíces Cubanas, and we kind of started with that, being a bit of a behind the scenes player in the industry, is certainly a long established and much beloved and cherished factory that deserves to be recognized and deserves to be spotlighted more. And I take my hat off to your efforts, and I look forward to many more things, many great things coming out of that factory, your hands, and the work that you guys do together. So all the very best for that. And
Very, very nice. I appreciate that statement very much.
from the heart, Ralph Montero, Raíces Cubanas, thank you very much for being at the Light 'em Up Lounge.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for joining. I appreciate it. I appreciate it very much. It's been an honor.
With greatest pleasure. We see you all next week, same time, same station. Until then,
Thanks, Ralph. Great
up
show.
everybody. Goodbye.
All right, guys, take it easy.
Thank you so much
Thank
again.
you all.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Ralph. And Ralph, please, if I may, do